Welcome to On Your Own Terms. I'm Patty Talbot, and this is the place where we learn together what it takes to change the world on our own terms and in our own special ways. Today, my guest is Leah Guy. She's a fascinating person that I met through my association with heroic public speaking. I didn't get as much time to talk to Leah as I would have liked during our weeks together in training. But every time I saw her, she was just bubbling with energy, positivity, and light. And you could see the way she was drawing people to her. I am one of those people who was eager to get a chance to talk with her and learn about what makes her tick and the ways that she is connecting with the universe to make the world a better place in her own special way. I was eager to sit down with her because I find these interviews the best way I know to get to know change making women who are making the world a better place on their own terms. As always, I ask Leah my 5 questions are homegrown solutions for a patchwork world framework that gives changemakers an opportunity talk about their beingness, their doingness, their connectedness, and their reflectiveness, and how they are consciously showing up to change the world on their own terms and in their own special ways. So today I introduce you to Leah Guy. Leah, I'm so delighted that you are with us. I cannot wait to learn from you today.
I was born in Owensboro, Kentucky, and I lived there until I was 17 years old and had a very rich childhood, probably an idyllic childhood from a lot of people's perspectives. Most of my family was there, and I have a sister and 2 healthy parents who are still alive. And I learned from that experience so many things, but I was really introduced to a variety of, I don't necessarily want to say backgrounds because Kentucky, it's not infused with a lot of culture necessarily, but it is infused with a lot of roots and the connection to nature and to family and to safety in those environments when you're rooted was very important to me. Even though in my childhood, I went through parents who were divorced and I had a lot of traumas in my childhood. And I write about those in my book and I share openly about them. But those things really colored my life and my perspective and my reality for challenging purposes and also for a lot of growth purposes. I also, in those roots, felt very called at a young age spiritually and interest in spirituality and helping other people and mentoring other people and love of health and wellness and the arts and all these things were very much a part of my experience, not necessarily due to my upbringing, but due to the opportunities that I had both in schools and local organizations and churches and youth groups and things like that. So I came to discover for myself my love of music, of singing and playing the piano, of my spiritual connection, of outreach to people in both ministry as well as I said, mentoring and helping younger people behind me. And I guess I really had the freedom to feel like a leader even when I was a child. I was head of the organizations, like the school organizations. I was at the top of not my class because I wasn't the smartest person in the class, but I was a very social and organizational kind of person to lead groups and things like that. And I have always been an active participant that way in my life. And I feed off of it, of leading and helping, but also I've recently rediscovered the value in learning and receiving I spent all of my childhood in Kentucky, and my parents got divorced. I had an aunt who was murdered when I was 11, the same year that my parents divorced. I went through a lot of challenges like anxiety and eating disorders and feeling really alone with the traumas and pain through my life. Was eternally grateful for my extended families, my friends, and the groups that I had formulated over the years. So I spent a lot of time going back and forth to Kansas in the Midwest, where my grandparents were. We took a lot of family trips to Florida and to the beach, and we did all those things pretty routinely every year. And even though I grew up in a small town, I never felt a lack of resources or support or connection to the world around me. So that was very important to me. I also quickly became ingratiated to, in line of the spiritual interest, some ancestral roots like the Native American Indians and some of their rituals. And I've since included a lot of those in my work today. And I've always had a desire and an exploratory spirit, if you will. So I've moved actually, I counted recently. I'm 51 years old and I've moved apartments, locations, homes, or what have you, 48 times in the 51 years. And part of that was because divorced parents and we had multiple places and they like to move. A lot of it, though, was me chasing my dreams or running from my pain or going to new adventures and trying new things. I very much view life as chapters in a book almost. And I like to fulfill and explore and satisfy those chapters and then move on to the next story, the next piece. So that started at a very young age for me when I was 18. I went to college in Birmingham, Alabama, and then I became a missionary in Lake Tahoe, California when I was 19. And I spent the summers back and forth between California and Alabama and Kentucky and did this whole tour. Again, helping kids, providing music education, after school programs, weekend programs with other college students. And it makes me emotional just to talk about it. It's one of the most beautifully enriching times of my life to have that. And it's a joke that because I know a lot of people, they do these mission trips and so forth. When I signed up, I had no idea where in the world that they would send me. And my parents were freaking out thinking this 19-year-old is going to go to a third world country. And then I get Lake Tahoe. So it was funny as a running joke. But I ended up moving to Tahoe because I loved it so much. And I went to school in Reno, and this is part of the whole moving and adventures, and worked in Squaw Valley, which now has a new name, and then returned to Birmingham because I wasn't successfully finishing school and re-enrolled at another college in Birmingham. And then I endured another trauma. I was raped that year when I was 22. So that kind of uprooted me and sent me back to Kentucky to heal. And I did that, or I started that. It didn't happen immediately. And then I finished my schooling in Louisville, Kentucky. So I ended up going to 4 colleges and finished in 5 years and stayed around that area for a little bit until I got grounded and got back on my feet. But from there, I went and started following my dreams. And I went back to California, back to Los Angeles and Santa Barbara area, and even still, I'm on the move. I think a lot of people, for people like myself who aren't planted necessarily in the world, can see us as flighty. But that's one of the reasons I mentioned that importance of me being rooted when I was young, feeling an anchor within myself, feeling an anchor spiritually and from where I come from, which has allowed me to adventure and explore and do all these things. So I've been back and forth coast to coast for all these years and find myself in New Jersey and New York for 20 of those years, but still at different places. And so that's where I am now. We all have limitations on us, whether they're financial or environmental or familial or whatever limitations that we have, even education limitations. But I believe that we all have the ability to access our inner freedom. And that relates both to that spiritual sense of who we are and feeling connected and free in that way. And it also relates to what we want to contribute to the world in our lifetime. And for me, that has taken the form of helping other people heal, emotional healing, mental healing, and essentially spiritual healing, and also our creative contributions and how we express ourselves. There's so many people that have been either abused, traumatized, made to feel or be small in their lives, to not have a voice. And many people, many adults are operating from a wounded state of pain versus a healing state of freedom. And that is what I stand for. I have done many things in my life. They're mostly all in the media or the healing arts. And no matter what I've done or whatever I do for the rest of my life, my purpose and my goal is to bring inspiration and guidance, as an example myself, of how we can access this freedom. And that to me is the most important thing. We get crippled with imbalances mentally, emotionally. We are crippled in our insecurities, in our pain, in our plights that we have. We become victim to what's happened to us in our lifetimes and what's going on around us. And it is my full belief that when we find the anchor within ourselves and live from that place and that expression of our freedom and creativity, that we can bust through those chains that bind us. And in that space, even if it's a very small personal space, there is an unlimited amount of potential and peace and happiness. So that's what I do and why I do it. I've had the opportunities to live in some amazing cities like New York City and Los Angeles, San Francisco, even Birmingham, Nashville. And in those cities, I greatly learned the value of culture and the difference of how people not only live their day to day life, but how they really perceive life and what's meaningful and important to them. And in these cities, I have found a depth within myself of seeking beauty in some of the smallest ways. I think it's very easy to live in these gorgeous places, which I happen to live in right now. And when we live in these beautiful environments and places, which I'm not taking anything away from them, but it's very easy to just overlook the beauty that is there. And when we're in these more urban environments, we have to seek it out because there's so much grit and dirt and chaos and suffering and busyness in those places. So that was of great value to me, as well as the food. I'll always cherish the food in these cities. However, you can imagine coming from Kentucky, of all the places I've lived, I quickly learned there is an idea about people from the South and from places like Kentucky, whether we're not as smart, we're not as sophisticated, we're not as wise or cultured or what have you. And some of that is true just by and large because there's less influence from different cultures, certainly, although there is a great variety of people that live all over the place now. But what I really learned over the years and respected was those roots that I mentioned earlier. That even though I've been on a spiritual journey, and one of my greatest achievements that I hope I reach in this lifetime is a full awakening or some kind of enlightenment. When I look at all of the people and the offerings that are available, whether it's in cities or small towns, I always get reminded of those people from my roots, the wise elders that would sit on the porch and be able to be present and still and observe. And so much of my wisdom, I believe, comes from that, not from the fancy schools, not from the meditation centers, not from the trips and journeys to new places. It comes from those quiet, small, simple examples that I had that are so profound. And it's given me a greater respect for the ancestral knowledge handed over and the slower life in a way, and the less complicated things don't mean wise or better. But in all the experiences that I've had, I have learned so much in my work with other people and for myself, mostly about two words. And those words would be acceptance and tolerance. And in my personal growth, the word tolerance is a dominant leading attribute for me. The more tolerant that I can become of others, the more tolerant I can become of myself. And when I'm in tolerance, I'm not reacting. I'm not running from things. I'm not chasing things. I'm not trying to change or fix other people or things to make it better for me. I am part of the fabric of all that is. And in that tolerance, making space for the reality instead of trying to escape the reality. Each and every place has taught me that in a different way. And I think a lot of people experience that in their travels, but I think by and large, it's a very personal and quiet experience of developing and developing that inner self and our heart space and our minds to be in acceptance and tolerable for others and tolerating others and the weather and everything that is around us, right? It includes everything because when we're not in that state, we're resisting. And then in that resistance, we're not experiencing presence or peace or mindfulness or joy by and large. So when I think about my life's work, I hope for a growing amount of people to feel inspired, number one, to reconnect to themselves and to their passions and to their purpose and to that piece about who they truly are, but also that to be part of the solution for the conversation and the healing practices around mental health and emotional health and also physical health, to be honest. I'm working on a big project right now that's a creative media project, and it's the first of its kind for me. And so the reason I'm working on this project is because I want to reach the person who may be not on a specific seeking path or on their healing journey or what have you, but are looking at it as entertainment, but could have a profound change of heart, meaning the inspiration to remember that there's no timelines, there's no limitations, that we all have access to different resources, that there's no shame in reaching out for help, for support, that it's never too late to live your dreams or to change your perspective or to heal or to right wrongs or to come fully into your power. The whole idea of time in our lives and what we should do when, I think it's a big disservice to humanity. And it truly does not matter where you are in your life or what you're doing or how old you are or how much money you have or how many relationships you've been in or if you have children or if you're straight or if you're gay or if you're trans or if you're whatever color. It does not matter. That I want to be part of the solution to welcome and inspire people to say yes to themselves and yes to their healing. So that is my main mission. My last book is Overcoming Toxic Emotions. And I'm proud of this book for many reasons. One, I try to write in a very simple, practical way. And the book is about releasing blame from others and taking full self responsibility for how we feel, how we're operating, the relationships that we're having, and how we're experiencing our life. And I think it is helping people. And it's recently been published in Russia and in France and in Poland. And the book guides a person to connecting to their emotional imprints from when they were a young person and how they're still acting or thinking or addicted to the feeling state of some of their more challenging times and how they can help make change for themselves to release that pattern and that addiction and truly rewrite their story as they see it. I think so many people, I always give this analogy. It's like if we were watching a movie of our lives, a lot of people, it's like they're rewinding the first 15 minutes of their movie. And we just keep going back to the same characters and the same storyline and the same setup and the same thing that happened. It is truly possible to continue the movie through. We want to see the arc, we want to see the resolution, and we can see that movie in a beautiful way, but we're the ones that have to co-create it and write that. So the book is helping a person move into a new phase of their life, into a healing and a higher vibration and a frequency and understanding and perspective that can give them a new sense of self. I love to teach, and there's a lot of different platforms and places that you can work with me. And those are on Insight Timer. I have meditations, courses, and live streams. And you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, etc., at Leah Guy Live, LeahGuyLive. And there you'll find reels and inspirational quotes and posts and events and workshops and things that are coming up. I do still offer some one on one services for people who need soul retrieval work and inner child healing and spiritual coaching and intuitive readings. So, all that can be found on my website, leahguy.com. And if you don't reach out or follow me, I urge you to please reach out to whomever you feel resonant with if you need support, because we all need support. I reach out to my people. Everyone needs support in their life. There is no shame. There is no judgment. There is nothing but resources and support available. And so please take action for yourself if you're struggling, if you're suffering, if you feel like you're reliving your life over and over in not the best ways. I urge you to do that. And all of us appreciate you for it.
Thank you so much, Leah. What a joy to learn from you and to get to know more about you today. I am so eager to stay connected with you and continue to be inspired by the work and the energy that you're putting out in the world and the wisdom that you're teaching us about how we can learn to open ourselves up to possibility. Folks, can you see how Leah's work, opening herself up to diverse ideas and reflecting deeply on her own experiences, is informing the way she's showing up in the world and what she wants to reflect outwardly for others to possibly share? This is what we call reflection, internal and external reflection here at Blue Roads. Can you also see that doing so helps each individual show with their best health and well-being so that they have the energy, the capacity, and the confidence within themselves to do what they can to make the world a better place? That's what the global goals are all about. So when you match your skills and your abilities and your energy with the attributes that changemakers share, you use those in the service of one of those global goals that the United Nations has laid out. That, my friends, is how the world is changed and how the world is changing because of people like Leah and because of people like you. So next week, we're going to feature another change-making woman. And in the meantime, may you be grounded in your beingness, guided in your doingness, generous in your connectedness, and inspired in your reflectiveness, so you can consciously change the world on your own terms. I'm Patty Talbot. I'm always learning, and I know you are too.